This morning, I heard the delusional fools inside the Beltway babbling again about imaginary diplomatic victories. It is ridiculous. Look at the physical truth unfolding on the battlefield. The regime in Kyiv just received the bodies of 1,000 fallen soldiers, 1,000 dead bodies. What did Russia get in return? 35 bodies, 35. Do the math. The math never lies. This horrific casualty ratio proves one thing. It is not a war. It is a meat grinder, an industrial slaughter. Nearly 7,000 Ukrainian POWs are still languishing in Russian captivity. They surrendered because the front has collapsed. Why do we continue this stupidity? History has taught us bloody lessons about land powers. Just like General Grant in the American Civil War, Russia is applying a ruthless strategy of attrition. They have the artillery. They have millions of 152mm shells. Their defense industry is running 24/7. And the West, completely empty. No Abrams or Leopard tank is going to save them from this severe manpower shortage. The neocons and the globalists do not care. They just want to keep this furnace burning to enrich their defense donors. America's national interest is not in Eastern Europe. It is in securing our own borders. This arrogance will lead to catastrophe. It is finished. It is over. When the truth on the battlefield becomes too brutal, what do the elites do? They blame the information. The mainstream media is peddling a new magical weapon. This time, it is not a missile. It is a Canadian AI software called Cipher. The children in Brussels hope this toy will save Europe from so-called Russian disinformation. Laughable. It is pathetic. This software supposedly tracks networks, automates detection, and predicts propaganda narratives. They label anyone who speaks the truth about the collapse of this campaign as a threat trying to erode public support. Look, Russia does not need fake news to defeat NATO. The power grids are burning. The 155mm artillery shells are depleted. Our stockpiles are completely empty. That is physical reality. It is not a psychological operation. Instead of facing the bankruptcy of their interventionist policies, the Uniparty tries to censor reality by drafting reports to silence the public. You cannot use a computer program to replace the tens of thousands of soldiers dead on the banks of the Dnieper River. The real deception is flowing out of Washington and London. They are covering up a catastrophic failure of military strategy. It is like throwing money into a furnace, absolutely asinine. Listen, the media is screaming about cheap intelligence stories. They are crying about the families of prisoners of war being blackmailed by Russia. They say these families are coerced into burning military vehicles or providing air defense coordinates. They even say Russia is using POWs to force families to register Starlink terminals for military use. Let us be frank. What is the truth? War is hell. When you throw a proxy force into a meat grinder and let the front collapse, desperation is certain. Thousands of families lose contact. Official information systems break down. This forces them to wander Facebook and Telegram for news about their loved ones. That is when agencies like the Russian Federal Security Service, the FSB, step in. In every conflict from World War II to Vietnam, intelligence always exploits the weaknesses of the home front. This is basic ISR. It is not a novel. If their government had not pushed them into this meat grinder, those mothers and wives would never have become targets. Condemning these tactics is just Washington's way of deflecting from the root failure. The West has no capacity to protect its proxy force. Logistics have broken down, finished. All complaints about the cruelty of war just prove the ignorance of the people sitting in air-conditioned Beltway offices. The math simply does not allow them to win. Let us talk about diplomatic delusion. Washington still thinks they are the masters of the universe. They tried to frame the war with a ridiculous 20-point plan drafted in December. They hoped Moscow would obediently sign it. The result? Foreign Minister Lavrov flatly threw it out. He stated nobody handed them such a document. Western diplomats are screaming. They blame Russia for sabotaging talks with fake accusations about drones attacking Putin's residence in Valdai. They cry about a shooting targeting a military intelligence general in Moscow. They even panicked when Russian intelligence exposed a plot by the UK and France to provide Ukraine with nuclear weapons. What is the truth? Russia does not need tricks to delay. They control the battlefield. Why would the victor make concessions to an illegitimate regime? Russia's security, territorial, and political demands have never changed. When Moscow elevated a hardliner like Vladimir Medinsky to chief negotiator, the message was clear. They are not negotiating a withdrawal. They are negotiating a surrender. The West is trying to manipulate the narrative. They want to deceive the American public and blame the adversary. Pathetic. It is the ultimate deception. Finally, what is our purpose, method, and end state? Nothing. The fools in Washington have dragged us into the worst catastrophe since World War II. They ignored the destiny of geography. Russia is a massive land power. They have impenetrable strategic depth. History proves their patience. It is exactly like Field Marshal Kutuzov slowly bleeding Napoleon's army dry. Today we see the exact same thing. NATO's arsenals are depleted. The Patriot defense systems are powerless against strikes from Kinzhal and Iskander missiles. No amount of American taxpayer money can alter the physics of war. The neocons think they can sow division between America and Europe. They think they can use the media to cover up their failure. But the math is ruthless. No artillery shells, no manpower. The European economy, especially Germany, is being heavily deindustrialized. It will soon collapse. The only solution, the only way out for America, is to pull all our money out of this meat grinder. Focus on our own borders. Stop listening to the Uniparty. Stop listening to the globalists. Negotiate based on territorial realities. NATO is a dead man walking. It is over. I repeat, it is over. The collapse of this delusion is just a matter of time.